So recently I was reviewing what's Jean Kelly, her textbook. This is her textbook that focuses on ASL to English interpretation. This one here. And I use this book in a class that I'm currently teaching. It's an interpreting class that focuses on ASL to English interpreting. So, yeah, and I've taught from this book in the past, and really every time there's a chapter in this book that's about competence and skill. The chapter talks about how to improve your interpreting skill, what you should do to improve. I really like this chapter. So I want to take a moment and give you a little bit of content from this chapter. And the content is about competence. So Kelly borrows some work from two other researchers. O'Connor and Seymour are the researchers she borrows from, and they did some research work back in 1990 about competence and levels of competence and how it relates to consciousness. So being conscious or unconscious, and then being competent or then conversely incompetent. So I want to briefly give you a rundown of each of these levels. And these levels are common experiences for anybody who's learning something new. For example, how to interpret, or learning a new language, or learning how to weld, learning how to play basketball, whatever it is that the person is learning. There are similar experiences related to competence, and then the level of consciousness. And there are four. Very often, learners start on this first level of the terminology they use is unconscious, meaning the person is unaware. And at that level of unconscious incompetence, it means their skills are incompetent or weak, but that person is not aware that they're weak. And that's the very first level of skill development. It means that person is just unaware. They don't know that they have any weaknesses or inadequacies with that skill. They're not aware of the need necessarily to even improve at that point. And at this level, it's very difficult to improve. Reason being is that you're unconscious of it. You're not thinking about your skill level. You're just going along. All right, so that's the first level. The next level, actually, I should put this on my levels shown in space a little bit differently, okay? So really the bottom level, which I'll show on my pinky finger, is the unconscious incompetence. And the next level is conscious incompetence, which means somebody has become aware that they have a weakness and that they need to improve. It could be that they have an instructor or a mentor, somebody who's helping that person. Maybe by saying, by indicating you have, some weakness in this area, or this is an area of improvement. Now that learner is able to then move from being unconscious to being conscious of that incompetence. Now it could be that you feel a bit deflated at first. It may not feel good, but it should be followed pretty quickly by the inspiration, because you're able to now do something, and that's good news. So again, the first level, you're unconscious of incompetence. Then maybe you go to workshops or classes, or you have a teacher or a mentor, and they enable you to become conscious and then move to the next level. Now the level after that is then you're conscious and you're also competent. So you've had some improvement in skill, some increase in skill, you've learned something, you're developing. All of that's moving along. However, you're still not quite 100%, meaning it's not just kind of ingrained and smooth. You still have to do a lot of effort thinking and trying, putting a lot of effort toward that particular skill. Now, it does mean that you've learned something, you have improved, you've practiced and become better at something, but and you've taken some of those skills as part of your work, but it still requires work to be competent in those ways. Now the fourth and final level is conscious competence, meaning you're not having to apply so much effort and thought and energy into becoming competent. It just really happens. Your competence in that skill. So maybe for an interpreter who has a tremendous amount of experience for years and years, and they've been interpreting maybe in a particular setting, let's say maybe theater or post-secondary interpreting, and this interpreter is very experienced and is just able to go and interpret. Maybe, for example, they've interpreted for a calculus class, and they've interpreted this class 25 times already, and now that interpreter likely has become pretty skilled, pretty competent at interpreting this class, and they don't have to put as much energy and effort into performing in that setting, right? Compared to before. So that would be the final and top level of conscious competence, meaning you're just very strong at that skill and you don't have to put much thought into it. So those four levels of skill, competence, and then consciousness versus unconsciousness is really important. I mean, really it's a good idea that we are aware of where are we in that particular place. Am I conscious of my weaknesses or not conscious of them, or where am I at? So it's really a good idea. And just a bit of a tip, my 2 cents would be to snag, another individual, maybe an instructor, an interpreter, a mentor, and say, hey, would you do me this favor and maybe view my interpreting work, some videos, and give me some feedback. Would you do that for me? This is great. And then you allow somebody else to have to give their perspective and to give feedback to you. And then you can take that feedback, and again, it might be difficult sometimes to take the feedback. It might be a little, uncomfortable, kind of experience, but now you're able to work on something and you're able to improve. So those are the full 4 levels of competence. So those are good, yeah.